you ever discovered a detail at a theme park and thought, there's gotta be a story behind that? Well, you've come to the right place. We're Amanda, Kevin, and Kim, the team behind Where in the Park, and we've spent years exploring theme parks and creating seek and find games that uncover the details that most people miss. And now we're diving into the history, stories, and secrets behind those magical details. So grab your curiosity, and maybe even a churro, and let's explore the parks together, one detail at a time. Hello everyone, this is Amanda, and today on the Where in the Park podcast, we are going to continue our series of Windows with a View, exploring the next set of windows on the left-hand side of Main Street, U.S.A. at Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Part 1 of this series explored City Hall and the windows for Buzz Price, Marty Sklar, and J.B. Lindquist. Part 2 looked at Walt's apartment and windows for Charles Boyer and Harriet Burns. Then, in Part 3, we rounded the corner and discovered the windows above the Emporium, learning more about Claude Coates, Elias Disney, and the fictional Dr. Benjamin Silverstein, as well as Wethel Rogers. The easiest way to binge this series is to go to whereinthepark.com/podcast. There you'll find a drop-down for Disney parks with the links for this Windows with a View series. Clicking on each one not only provides the photos and script of each episode, but also includes the embedded podcast player right there, so you can listen and follow along. While you're on the website, be sure to click the Games tab in the navigation bar to check out our selection of Where in the Park games for both Disneyland, DCA, and even Downtown Disney. These unofficial, self-paced, seek-and-find games create an immersive way to discover the details hidden in plain sight within the park's theming. Play at your own pace and find a deeper appreciation for the parks we all love so much. With over 150 images to find around the resort, there's so much more to explore. Save 10% off your first order by using code PODCAST10 at checkout. Links to our games and our podcast blog are in the show notes below. All right, so let's continue this series by looking at the next set of windows. In this part 4, we'll continue along the Fortuosity Shop with the next set of windows after Wethel Rogers, and then make a left onto Center Street, which I like to call the Carnation Cafe Courtyard, as this is where you'll find the outdoor dining area for the restaurant. So let's see whose dedication windows we can find in this section of the park. First up is the window next to Wethel Rogers, which has an oval with a picture of a large 3-story house with an American flag, along with the following words: Good Neighbor Foundation, quote, caring and giving come from the heart, end quote. Mrs. M.A. Mang, director. Mary Anne Mang first started her long Disney career in the sales promotion department at the Disneyland Hotel in 1960. Within a year, she had transitioned to the department for Disneyland convention and tour sales. In 1972, Mary Anne became the first woman to become a Disneyland manager, overseeing the public relations department for 8 years. One of her most notable contributions, not just to Disney, but the community as a whole, came in 1983 when she helped started the Disney VoluntEARS program, in which she would coordinate cast members' community projects. In the book, People Behind the Disney Parks, there is a photo of her on page 154 working on the roof of a house. In 1987, she founded the Disneyland Creativity Challenge program, which recognizes junior and senior high school students with interests in creative and fine art disciplines. I could not find a whole lot more information about the program, other than it had some award ceremonies for a few years. We were also unable to determine if this program is still available or when it ceased to exist. There is the Disney Imagination Campus, which for years has featured programs for both youth, college students, and even K-12 educators that is very much in line with what Mary Anne had envisioned for the Creativity Challenge program. Outside the park, she also served on a number of board of directors, local councils, and committees throughout Orange County. Mary Anne's window was dedicated in 1994, which is the same year she retired. She would later be honored as a Disney legend in 2005. She passed away October 20th, 2023, but her legacy lives on as the VoluntEARS program continues to serve communities today. Going further down the set of windows on the second floor of the Fortuosity shop, we'll next stop at the corner. Look up and you will find a bay window above a large Citizens brand clock. This is fitting as the shop features gifts, jewelry, curios, and watches. There are dedication windows to the left and right of this bay window. The window to the left is a 2-paned window honoring Dave Smith. Both the top and bottom panes feature large gold circles and text on scrolls. The top pane reads, New Century Historical Society. The bottom pane has a large quill pen and an ink bottle with the text in front of it reading Dave Smith, Town Archivist. And then, on the scrolls along the bottom, Preserving, Protecting, and Presenting Our Fond Memories of the Past. As we learned in our Words of Wonder episode, this last line is a clear call back to the dedication of Disneyland, where Walt famously read, in part, Here age relives fond memories of the past. And when it comes to preserving those memories, Dave Smith made it his life's work to ensure those memories were never lost. Dave grew up in Southern California and was fascinated about Walt's life and legacy, to the extent that he was thinking of compiling a bibliography about Walt in the 1960s. He joined Walt Disney Studios in 1970, becoming the company's first official archivist. At the time, there was no centralized archive and therefore no formal system for preserving the company's history. In fact, much of Disney's early material, such as documents, artwork, or even film clips, was scattered across departments, and drafts or even completed works may have been tossed in the trash when they were no longer needed. Dave quite literally built the archives from the ground up, working closely with Disney legends, interviewing employees, and gathering materials that told the story of the company, not just the finished films and attractions, but the people and processes behind them. Over time, what he created became what we now know as the Walt Disney Archives, which became sort of a gold standard that other companies tried to emulate. Dave wrote extensively about Disney, contributing to publications like Disney Magazine and the Disney Channel magazine with the Ask Dave column, where readers could send in their Disney questions and he would personally respond, becoming a trusted voice for all things Disney history. His 2012 book, Disney Trivia from the Vault, was a compilation of almost 30 years of the Ask Dave column. He also wrote several trivia and history books, multiple editions of Disney A to Z, the official Disney encyclopedia, and the book The Quotable Walt Disney, which is a 276-page book of quotes from Walt. Dave was named a Disney legend in 2007. He retired in 2010 after 40 years with the company, but his legacy continues. The torch has been passed down to Becky Klein, who had worked in the archives department for 17 years up to that point, and has been the director of the Walt Disney Archives since Dave's retirement. His meticulous work and his dedication to preserving even the smallest details paved the way for projects like the recreation of Walt Disney's office in 2015. The office includes original furniture, miniatures from Walt's collection, his piano, and period pieces from when Walt occupied the office. In 2016, D23 presented the official Walt Disney Studios walking tour, which not only takes you to Walt's office, but also to the Walt Disney Archives and through Legends Plaza. This tour is still going on today, and new this year are expanded tour offerings, including a trip to the animation building, movie sound stages, and what they're calling digital tour companions that enhance your experience with added storytelling and history. Now, this tour sells out quickly, so we'll be sure to link it in the blog for this episode so you can get all the details, and definitely let us know when you go. In 2017, Kevin and I took this tour at the studio, and it was truly a magical experience. You could feel a heavy presence in Walt's office, like you were in a sacred place. During that tour, we stopped by the archives, and we were delighted that Dave Smith was there in person, even though he was retired. He was so kind and grateful that the group appreciated the pieces in the collection around the room and the pieces that he brought out for us to see. It was such an honor to share with him our gratitude for all his hard work in keeping the magic alive. Dave passed away February 15th, 2019, at age 78. On January 24th, 2022, at the dedication ceremony for his window, a choir sang When You Wish Upon a Star with the Blue Fairy, Pinocchio, and Geppetto, and a selected audience in attendance. At the end, Disney ambassadors Jada Young and Mark Everett King Jr. lowered the curtain to reveal the window in its current position, and confetti was released. It's a fitting tribute because Main Street USA is all about memories and nostalgia, and thanks to Dave Smith, those memories aren't just remembered, they're preserved for generations to come. Continuing on, the other side of this same bay window lists 4 names, each name ending with the letters MD for medical doctor. Their names are C.V. Patterson, W.F. Allen, D.S. Gilmore, and E.G. Upjohn. Now, if you have ever heard of the name Upjohn, especially if you're from Kalamazoo, Michigan, you might think of this as just another pharmaceutical company. But its story actually begins with a simple problem. Back in 1875, Dr. William E. Upjohn was working as a physician in Hastings, Michigan, and he and his brothers Henry and James noticed that medications weren't always reliable. Pills would be too hard, dissolve unevenly, or pass through the body without working or dissolving at all, and therefore being completely ineffective. So in 1886, they developed what became known as the friable pill, a tablet designed to easily break down and dissolve, ensuring patients actually received the intended dose. Breaking down so easily, in fact, that it was advertised that you could smash the pill with your thumb and it would turn the pill into powder. This image would become the company's logo for the next 60 years. That innovation led to the official founding of the Upjohn Pill and Granule Company in 1886, and they moved to downtown Kalamazoo. The company was built around one core idea: trust and reliability in medicine. Over the next several decades, Upjohn grew to a major pharmaceutical company, helping standardize drug manufacturing and even producing widely recognized medicines like Xanax, Rogaine, and Motrin. Beyond medicine, the company also found its way into something a little unexpected: theme park history. On July 17, 1955, when Disneyland Park opened its gates, one of the opening day locations on Main Street, USA was the Upjohn Pharmacy, which, not surprising considering that I'm talking about it right now, is located where the Fortuosity shop is today. According to DisneyHistory101.com, guests would walk in and see actual licensed pharmacists. The drugstore featured 2 rooms. One had a vibe of Victorian-era apothecary and featured antiques from medical and surgical professions, while the other room was more contemporary and modern, with an exhibit of the Upjohn Company's drug manufacturing process. The facade was designed by architect Earl G. Kaltenbach and Hollywood art director Gabe Scogliamilio. Artists at Wed Enterprises designed the interior of the shop before being redesigned by architect Will Burton. Outside, hanging below the bay window, was a large glass lantern in an hourglass-like shape with the words, "The Upjohn Company, founded 1886. This lantern is where the Citizens Clock is today. But this wasn't just a random brand placement. It was part of Walt Disney's vision for Main Street. He wanted it to reflect a turn-of-the-century American town, filled with authentic businesses you might actually find in the early 1900s, and were still household names. Partnering with real companies like Upjohn helped bring that authenticity to life. The Upjohn Pharmacy itself served both a thematic anchor and a sponsored location, blending storytelling with real-world industry. Guests could step inside and experience a version of a classic American drugstore. Something familiar, nostalgic, and rooted in real history. Of course, as we mentioned in our last episode in this series, this location was not an actual working pharmacy. It was simply an exhibit or an advertisement for the Upjohn Company. Over the years, Upjohn would merge with 3 companies: Pharmacia AB in 1995, the Monsanto Company in 2000, yes, Disney fans, that Monsanto Company, and finally acquired by Pfizer in 2003. Regardless of its current name, Upjohn's presence on Main Street, USA was a reminder of how deeply connected Disneyland was, and still is, to real-world innovation and partnerships. As for the names on that window in Disneyland, which, just as a refresher, as it's been a few minutes since I mentioned them, was C.V. Patterson, W.F. Allen, D.S. Gilmore, and E.G. Upjohn, all listed as medical doctors. Well, who were these guys? Well, they were key members of the Upjohn Company, but what's funny about this is that Patterson, Allen, and Gilmore were not actually doctors. Only E.G. Upjohn was a doctor. Per the book, People Behind the Disney Parks, putting the MD at the end of the other names was added as a joke by Jack Gauntlet, Upjohn's advertising director. This window was added in 1955, but was updated and restored in 2022, which is when Dave Smith's window was added on the other side of the bay window. So let's take a moment and learn a little bit more about each of these guys. C.V. Patterson was Coy Patterson, who started with the Upjohn Company in 1925 and rose to the ranks of executive vice president. F.W. Allen was Fred Allen, who was the Upjohn Company's vice president and director of sales. During the grand opening of the pharmacy on Disneyland's opening day, Fred was the one who cut the ribbon at the ceremony. Then you have Donald S. Gilmore, who served as the chairman and managing director of the Upjohn Company. He and Walt were friends for many years. Both he and Walt owned homes at Smoke Tree Ranch, which is located in Palm Springs in California. Donald also lived close to his family in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and reportedly made 12 trips from Michigan to California to oversee construction of the Upjohn Pharmacy on Main Street. Finally, we have E.G. or Dr. Everett Gifford Upjohn, who was the great-nephew of W.E. Upjohn, the company's founder. Everett would eventually become the president of the company in 1953. Interestingly, earlier iterations of this window featured two other names, J.J. Cannon and W.G. Freeman. Joseph J. Cannon was in the sales department and William G. Freeman was an office manager. To learn more about the Upjohn Pharmacy, a new book was recently released called A Spoonful of Sugar, The Story of the Upjohn Pharmacy in Disneyland. We'll be sure to link it in our blog for you to check out. The Upjohn Pharmacy was replaced with the New Century Clock and Watch Shop in 1972. Yep, I said New Century again. If you recall, Dave Smith's window was for the New Century Historical Society. That's a callback to this shop. Now, we've covered the timeline of different shops at this location over the years in part 3 of our Windows with a View series, so be sure to go back and check that out. On our blog for this episode, though, we'll include some additional resources we found while researching this episode if you'd like to take a deeper dive. But just to round out this section, know that the Fortuosity shop we have today opened in October 2008. As we enter into the courtyard and walk along the outdoor seating section of the Carnation Cafe, the next section of the building contains 3 skinny windows, the middle of which reads Diamonds, Gems, Wholesale Only. The 2 windows on either side just read Jewelry. This is a callback to the Crystal Arcade, whose main entrance is around the corner, but all of the shops within this entire building are connected. One of those shops is the New Century Jewelry Store that features a section for Pandora jewelry. The brick building next door features 2 windows with red trim, one that reads Fine Chinese, and the other reading Food Restaurant. Between the words on both panes are similar white teapots. Now, you might be thinking, that's odd. Why would there be a Chinese restaurant up there? Well, in the early years of Disneyland, Walt had an idea for International Street, which would run parallel to Main Street and feature different cultures and countries from around the world. Now, we're talking 1950s here. We're still a long way from Epcot. But we did also mention this street in our episode from January, Why Epcot Exists, the story behind World Showcase. In 1959, years after giving up on creating an international street, Walt suggested creating a Chinatown area on Center Street. but the restaurant was going to be on the other side of Main Street, over by where the lockers are today. We'll save more details about Chinatown and how early developments of it paved the way for great moments with Mr. Lincoln, as well as the Enchanted Tiki Room for when we get to that side of the street in a future Windows with a View episode. For now, though, just know that these two windows are a nod to what could have been in the early days of Disneyland. The final set of windows that we'll look at today are in the far back left corner of this courtyard, above the restrooms. Here, you'll find 3 windows. The middle window featuring a top pane with the name Christopher D. Miller. Christopher is the eldest child of Ron and Diane Disney Miller and first grandchild of Walt and Lillian. Christopher became the assistant director on several Disney movies and TV shows from 1979 to 1983, with the last being the screen adaptation of Ray Bradbury's Something Wicked This Way Comes. When his window was added in 1955, however, Christopher was a 1-year-old baby. The window pane that is currently below his name reads Turkish Baths. Now, this is interesting. If Christopher is a baby, then surely he would like baths and bubbles, which a bubble soak is common at Turkish baths. And given this window is directly above the restrooms, perhaps that's the connection there? To further add to this mystery, the windows to the left and right of this window pane in similar fonts and colors reads Main Street Gym and Massage Parlor. Surely Christopher is not attending Turkish baths, gyms, or massage parlors. We have found photos from the 1960s and 70s where the Main Street Gym sign is located below Christopher's window. We're not exactly sure when it changed to its current configuration. Either way, a person who would be very familiar with gyms would be Christopher's father, Ron Miller, who was a college football player for U.S.A. and was a tight end for the Los Angeles Rams in the NFL. Ron shares a window with Dick Nunes above the Main Street Bakery at the Magic Kingdom in Florida, which reads, The Original Dick Nunes Gym, Night Manager, Ron Miller, 24-hour service. Ron, Diane, and their 7 children, including Christopher, all share a window that is also above the same Main Street Bakery at the Magic Kingdom, featuring their Lazy M Cattle Company of Wyoming. But more about that when we do our Windows with a View series at the Magic Kingdom. And we'll learn more about Ron and the rest of the family when we get to their respective windows. As for that massage parlor, this is an interesting choice, as the term can often imply a brothel of some kind. Actually, Turkish baths also had that connotation in the 1950s. The fact that it has been a window for so long tells us there must be a connection to something else. That said, our research was inconclusive if these business windows were added after Christopher's window, or if there's a deeper connection to the Disney or Miller family. If you have any information about this, we highly encourage you to share over on our private Facebook group, Where in the Park Explorers. All right, so we're going to put a pin in this series for now, as the next set of windows are currently covered by construction walls. In fact, the entire building from the back of Carnation Cafe in this courtyard, all the way around to the front of the building, and all the way down and around the refreshment corner is under construction. During this time, not only is there scaffolding, but the windows have been removed completely. So until construction is over, we're not sure if we'll see the same windows, if any have been restored, or if any new dedication windows will be added. So until the walls come down, we'll focus on other areas of Disney parks and other theme parks around the country. So be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you have enjoyed this episode or learned anything new, we would love to hear from you. Send us a DM at Where in the Park on your favorite social platform, or join us on our private Facebook group, Where in the Park Explorers. If you have a second to leave us a 5-star rating and review, or even just share it with a fellow theme park goer, that would be amazing as well. It just tells Apple, Spotify, and all the other players that we're doing something awesome over here. Join us next week as we have our new monthly Park Press episode, where we'll be recapping events that we've been to over the last month, share where in the park will be next, and give a sneak peek into the upcoming episodes we're working on. Until next time, this is Amanda signing off, and we'll see you somewhere in the park. Bye for now. Thanks for exploring with us today. If you're ready to take your park experience to the next level, check out Where in the Park Games. They're self-paced seek-and-find adventures designed for you to experience the park in a whole new way. Whether you're visiting for a birthday, a family gathering, date night, or even a solo trip, you'll be searching up high and down low for the details found in the park's theming. Get ready to discover a deeper appreciation for your favorite theme park with a Where in the Park game and take 10% off your next adventure by using code PODCAST10. Which park will you explore next? Until then, we'll see you somewhere in the park.